and I will mute myself. Thank you.
Mwenyekiti, nilikuwa namsubiri ofisa wangu yule ambaye anapokea nafasi yangu kabla balozi hajaja, lakini simuoni kama ameingia.
Aha, okay. Tutamsubiri kidogo. Si
saa 5 kamili, nadhani yeye anajua saa 5 kamili.
Ndio, sawa. Tunamsubiri.
Yeah.
Amezoea saa ya kizungu.
Amezoea saa ya Dar es Salaam.
Är det någon som vet om Kalle-Åke, eller?
Ja, han ska vara med, men... Jag kan ringa Kalle-Åke.
Ja, gör det. Umeshafunga mizigo yote, mheshimiwa?
Niko ninafunga, ninafanya ratiba kidogo, kwa hiyo ninaunganisha.
Aha, sawa.
Yeah. Unapokuwa na ratiba ambayo saa nyingine haikutegemei sana, inakuwa sio rahisi sana kufanya kila kitu kama unavyopanga.
Ndio.
Ratiba za kiserikali inategemea zaidi upande wa serikali.
Ndio.
Yeah. Watu wako wote ndio hao wameingia, sio?
Amebaki mmoja anatafutwa. Ni sisi. Ni hawa waliokuwa.
Okay, ngoja na mimi nimtafute huyo binti wangu, sijui amekwama wapi.
Ndio. Periode. Som jag ser ut nu då, jag hade inlett det här och sen blir det att jag lämnar ut det till Sten först och sen eller Kalle-Åke skulle börja, eller hur har ni tänkt det ska?
Jag hade tänkt att Kalle-Åke skulle börja, men om han inte kommer så får väl...
Han svarar inte, men ska se. Hej, vi väntar på dig på Zoom. Okej, ska vi göra så då? Ja. Okej. Kalle-Åke anashinda na kompyuta yake. Kwa hiyo anasema tuanze, halafu atakuja baadaye.
Mheshimiwa, umefunga labda unaongea na ofisa?
Hapana, nilikuwa naongea na wewe nikasahau nimefunga mic.
Aha, ulikuwa
Okay. Ndio nilikuwa nasema nafikiri tuanze tu kwa sababu ameniambia anayejiunga sasa.
Ndio.
Kwa hiyo tuendelee tu, tuanze alafu atakapoingia tutamtambulisha.
Ndio.
Sawa.
Harriet, vad tog hon vägen?
Hon verkar ha ramlat ut ur mötet, men hon kommer säkert tillbaka igen i så fall, kopplar upp på nytt.
Mm.
Mm.
Nu kommer någon annan här, Tom Zoom. Men det är
Ja, det är hon från...
den nya ambassadören.
Ja, det är nya. Nej,
Ja.
det är inte ambassadör, det är head of...
Okej.
Vad heter det? Head of Chancery.
That is correct.
Aha, okej.
Ja, och Lina skriver jag är med om några minuter på chatten.
Aha.
Ja då, det var där strax före 11, bara att jag var mutad.
Ja, okej.
Men då väntar vi bara på...
Han håller på att ha problem med att bli incheckning, så han vill att vi börjar.
Okej.
Men jag tänker, Harriet gick ifrån.
Ja, men hon kommer nog.
Okay, you are all welcome to this meeting, and I have to thank the Tanzania ambassador, Dr. Slaa, is in Sweden, and Madam Tunsume, we don't see her. Maybe she didn't put on the, yeah. Hello.
I am sorry, I had difficulties joining in my laptop, so I had to switch and use my phone instead.
Yeah. Okay, we have just started. We would like to thank you and the ambassador for accepting our invitation. And I thank all the members of Sveta organization who have been able to attend this special meeting, especially to say goodbye to our ambassador in Sweden, and of course welcoming you here in Sweden. And we hope you are going to enjoy staying in Sweden and to be connected to the Sveta organization.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I hope Dr. Slaa have been explaining what Sveta is to you, but I would like just to say some few words as far as Sveta is concerned. And is a friendship organization, Tanzania and Sweden, and it was started in 1968. And the aim of the organization was to support the Tanzanian development, because Tanzania and Sweden have been a good friend from historical good times. So that was the aim. Those who are working in Tanzania, expatriates and volunteers, build this organization to have something in common to support Tanzania. That's just shortly. And there are more who have been longer than me, because I moved to Sweden in 1979, and at that time I joined the Sveta, and there are other people who have been members of Sveta long before me. So that is just shortly. And I don't know if I said your name. Your name is Bi Tunsume Mwango Lombe. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we continue what we want to discuss with some few members of Sveta, that the conversation is going to be some sort of interview. Then I have to start welcoming Mr. Steen. If you have something to start with, maybe you have some question to Dr. Slaa before he leaves us in Sweden. You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Rehema. Yes, I can start with some questions. Perhaps you remember, Mr. Slaa, that Kaloke and I made an interview with you when just after you arrived. So it's fitting that we interview now again before you leave. So what do you think is your main contribution to the Sweden-Tanzania cooperation during your stay here as an ambassador?
Umefunga maiki mheshimiwa.
Sasa sifungi tena.
Acha hiyo.
Madam Chair and all the members of Svetan, I would like to say good morning to each one of you in the first place, but I would also in a very special way would like to introduce my colleague Tunsume once again to you all, as the chairperson has rightly introduced her. Her name is Tunsume. I don't want to venture into the second name because I might also mispronounce it. But she is the head of Chancery. For a very long time, our embassy did not have this position. I think the last time we had a head of Chancery was around 2014 or 2013, or somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken. So now we have a new head of Chancery. So myself as an ambassador, she's also my boss in that respect, because everybody in the embassy is under the supervision of the head of Chancery. But as you also know that I will be leaving already next Friday, the 1st of October, and my successor will be arriving immediately thereafter. That is part of the normal diplomatic procedures. One has to go before the replacement arrives. So in the meantime, she will be in charge of the office, what is diplomatically known as the Chargé d'Affaires. So she technically will be the acting ambassador ad interim. So I would like to thank you once again for this invitation. And coming back to Mr. Stein's question, let me start by saying there is so much that we have done in between my years here in 2018 when I arrived and now as I'm leaving. There is so much that we have done together with our Swedish colleagues, both the government, the private sector in particular, the business community, and mostly that is in the promotion of the business relations between Tanzania and Sweden. As you rightly remember, I think I did mention it in the beginning also, that our focus is mainly on what is now known as economic diplomacy. That is a shift from the long-standing political diplomacy, as we used to call it, whose focus was more or less on development cooperation. So for quite some time now, our focus, and incidentally, it is both the focus of Tanzania as well as the focus of Sweden. So we are both focusing on economic diplomacy. We still continue with the development cooperation, but the focus both for Sweden and for Tanzania is economic diplomacy. Unfortunately, as you all know, we have had difficult times, and I think that is the reason why we are also meeting digitally today. Since 2020, you know that the global pandemic has affected the entire global community, and we have been very badly affected. Actually, the very day the first corona patient was detected in Tanzania, I was in Tanzania with 30 companies from Sweden in a business conference that was held between the 10th to the 13th of March. And actually, it became very difficult for some of my delegation to come back to Sweden because some countries had already closed by the evening, I think, of the 12th, their borders, particularly countries like Denmark. It was not easy to re-enter. But that is it. Despite that, I think we cannot really point exactly to what tangible results we have achieved as a result of that, because even the companies that had planned to establish their businesses in Tanzania could not travel back, partly because of the travel advisory that was being issued by the Swedish government that did not allow the Swedish nationals to travel to Africa, mostly to Tanzania and to the rest of Africa, but also the insurance policy. You know, the insurance policy in Sweden is so difficult. When there is a problem in a country and you travel, you go at your own risk. And most of the Swedish people would not travel unless they are sure that they are covered by their insurance. So in terms of concrete investments, there isn't much that I can say we have achieved. There are a number of companies that ventured. There are 2 companies that I can say planned to put up factories for cashew production, but I don't think eventually they traveled, and they have been allocated with land, but they could not go and put up their factories. So they are still waiting for the clearance from the travel advisory from the government. As soon as they are allowed, I'm sure they will travel, and then possibly some first factories will begin. In the area of tourism, we were also very badly affected, just as many countries have also been affected. We have done a lot of tourism promotion programs. We have done digital conferences, quite a number of them. I have been on a program also with a Swedish company called Mti. I'm not quite sure how many of you have heard of this project, Mti. Mti is actually a Swahili word adopted by a Swahili entrepreneur, by a Swedish entrepreneur. And he has 6 investments in Tanzania, the Swedish guy. And his company in Tanzania is called Mti. So for us Tanzanians, it's very easy to understand Mti because it's actually a tree. The interpretation of Mti is actually a tree. So for us, it's easy, but I think for the Swedish people, it is just MTI. This guy has about 6 companies, both in Dar es Salaam, Morogoro, and in Mwanza. And we have recorded a number of promotional programs together with them. But we have also managed to establish a very concrete relationship between Tanzania Chamber of Commerce and the Swedish Eastern Africa Chamber of Commerce, and they signed a memorandum of understanding in 2020. But unfortunately, again, nothing concrete developed after the signing of that memorandum because of the COVID. But this year, we also had another digital conference through a very elaborate platform, the so-called Deal platform, if you have heard of it. And we had a big conference that brought, I think, close to 500 business people from the Nordic countries and from the Eastern Africa region. So that was, if we were to consider a conference also as an achievement, that was actually an achievement because we brought together about 500 people. But at the same time, there is no traveling, so nothing concrete can actually be said to have arisen as a result of that. So there are quite a number of things, and we really don't know when the world is going to open up again, so that the actual business and the actual tourism can start again. I know that we are getting now quite a significant number of tourists from other countries, but not from the Nordic countries. And the reason is because some of those countries, particularly from the US, they are writing to us and they are telling us they are not listening to what their government is saying. And that is very uncharacteristic of the Swedish. So I think until their government waives the restrictions completely. But I don't know when that is going to happen. So briefly, maybe I would say that is as much as we can say. But in the process, the most important is that we have established very, very many close relationships. As I said, 30 companies were down in Dar es Salaam. Those 30 companies were able to establish contacts. And I know that they are still in dialogue with their partners in Tanzania. I know also we're able to meet 50 Nordic companies that are already existing in Tanzania. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that there are 50 Nordic companies working in Tanzania materially now, and most of them have been there for quite some time. But the most important is that these Nordic companies in Tanzania, they have also advanced in their contacts with the government of Tanzania, and a number of their proposals are actually being acted on now by the government of Tanzania. So I think there has been a very close collaboration between the government of Tanzania and the Nordic business community, both those who are resident in Tanzania already and those who are beginning to move into Tanzania. I only hope the situation improves and then something concrete can develop from there.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Here you have been very busy. I have another question as well, if it's okay. You know that during your work here and the previous presidency of Mr. Magufuli, there have been some criticism on parts of the politics in Tanzania, both from the government and from the civil society. How has that affected your work here?
I know that was a very one of the critical questions you asked also during the first interview. And I think you had reported something to that effect also in the edition of the Habari. My position basically has not changed. We are looking at Magufuli from two perspectives. Politicians are always not the same. They always come with different approaches, and their emphasis is always on the way they see the situation. So Magufuli, for us, we Tanzanians, we see him as a person who went straight into the visible and the tangible. And I think for the Tanzanians, that is the most significant and the most important. And that is the reason why, if you followed the funeral of Magufuli, the entire country was on a standstill the moment Magufuli died, for almost the 3 weeks of his mourning until he was actually buried. Because the impact of the work of Magufuli was really visible, tangible, and it touched almost every single Tanzanian, and particularly the people in the rural areas. Now, if I talk of that, naturally, not every Tanzanian will have the same feeling. And that is why you are talking of the civil society. The civil society are talking of things from their perspective. And The most important is the human rights, the political civil space, and things like that, which are important, and I'm not saying they are not important. But for Magufuli, that was not a priority, and I think his priority was more focused on those tangible things. If you look at the number of hospitals that have been built, from regional hospitals, district hospitals, to village hospitals, he has built more hospitals than any government has done since independence. And that is a very significant contribution to the country. The big programs that he has undertaken, the so-called hydroelectric project, I know it is being criticized partly also by the civil society. But for us Tanzanians, that is the most important, because at least the prices of electricity are going to go down. So people who are talking, and incidentally, I've been to the site also as an ambassador, and even some of the propaganda that was being said that he's cutting down the forest, and he has taken part of the Slaa game reserve, which was a UNESCO heritage. We say, yes, it is true, but this is only 1% of the entire Slaa. So what is wrong with our taking 1% of the entire Slaa if we can generate cheap electricity for our country and be able to develop our economy? So I think there are two ways of looking at Magufuli, as you rightly say. Yes, the civil society, the political organizations, they have their way of looking at Magufuli, but the Tanzanian community have their way of looking at Magufuli as well. If you also, on the same note, say, is there a big change? Yes, there is a change, because the approach between the leadership is always different. The way Mama Samia Suluhu talks is different. She has very soft words. After all, she's a lady as a woman, but her upbringing, and she has said that all the time, that because of her upbringing, she's not a person who speaks as her predecessor. So I think there are significant differences, but one thing is also clear. She has clearly said that she is working on the same line as Magufuli, because Magufuli and herself are one and the same. It is true that some of the political space has opened up. Some of the issues on human rights have also been lightened. As a woman, you have seen what she has done now. Her government, half of her government, I think has women appointees, which I think is a credit. And in that sense, I think we have beaten Sweden, which, unlike your neighbors, they all have female prime ministers except Sweden. And we have now a female president. I think that is also an achievement in that respect. But in other ways, what is important is not that. Yes, those issues on human rights, I think, have started being addressed. Issues on political rights are also being addressed. And you may have heard of her statement where she promised the political parties that she's going to meet them. The only thing is that even here, I don't think when you get an appointment from the king, you can exactly fix a date for him. That is what the political parties want to do. And I think that is why you can always hear now of what is being said by the government. Yes, I have already told you that we are going to meet. That meeting has got to be organized properly. If it has to be organized properly, then let us wait for an appropriate time, and then we can discuss. And that is why she has met different categories of population. She has met women groups from all over the country, the youth groups from all over the country, the churches and the other denominations individually, the Muslims on their own, the Christians have been divided into two main denominations, the Lutheran denominations and the Catholics on their own. So I think she's trying to approach systematically in order to be able to implement her vision of her political approach in developing the country. That is in summary, unless you have got a follow-up question on that one.
Thank you. Your answer was very much more interesting than I intended to, because I was only asking how this criticism has influenced your work here in Sweden. Have you, how, for instance, that our government has decided to take down the amount of money that we provide Tanzanian government with?
Well, this you are quite right. I have been affected in a way, and I have been called to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, both of Sweden and as well as Denmark, to give some explanation. But I think I had all the answers to their questions. So it is not something really that affected me. I think diplomacy is always dialogue. This diplomacy is not a one-sided kind of pushing of issues on the other. When I was called in, I told my government colleagues, and I think this is public, I don't even have to hide it because it appeared in one of the, I don't think it was a mainstream newspaper, but it is published by one of an activist, I think, who had actually invited me on one occasion also into their function. I challenge the Swedish government. You are now talking today of democracy. But remember, you started following up issues of democracy in 1804. So you are more than 200 years already working on democracy, and we are less than 60 years. So you cannot expect Tanzania to just jump and be on the same level as Sweden, number one. But number two, all the decisions in Sweden for all the democratic processes that you are going through were made through your parliament. So for us, it is not only saying, yes, Magufuli, you change that, you are doing that, it's not proper. They all have to go through our parliament as well, if we are to respect democracy in its real sense. So I challenged them, and at the end of the day, we agreed, okay, let us continue to dialogue. And I think that is what diplomacy is all about. So it didn't disturb my program, it didn't affect anything. And some of the issues, like the issue of money that you were raising, I think we were not very much affected. We were affected by the funding that had something to do in a program that was being jointly funded, I think, by Sweden, Denmark, and the EU, because of the EU decision. And the EU decision was based mainly on something else and not so much only on the issues of democracy. But eventually, even that one ended up peacefully. It was sorted out because we sat down, we dialogued, we communicated, and we agreed that, yes, democracy has to go step by step. So I don't think there was that negative impact. Yes, it was challenging. It made me very active and very engaged. It made me very busy because I had to travel to basically all the Nordic countries, because when it comes to issues of human rights, all the Nordic countries are very actively involved and engaged. So in that sense, yes, I was very busy, but I think it was a very pleasant and enjoyable time because we really set up principles that one is that let us sit down, get the full details of the issues that you are raising. What do you know about the issue you have raised? This is what I know of the issue, and how much do you know of that? And then we sit down and we discuss openly. And that is why I like, one thing that I would like to say is that the Nordic countries, and unlike many other countries, I would say, and that's why I think I was very happy working in the Nordic countries. I think the Nordic countries, for one, they don't want to make noise in the press, out in the public. They want to dialogue. And they told me that we'll sit down and dialogue and sort out amicably, because in the first place, we have come a long way as friends. Basically, since before independence, we have been friends. So we can't just rupture everything because of the issues which have arisen now, which can be easily solved by dialogue.
Dr. Slaa, I would like to follow up what you're talking about right now with a more specific question. What contentious issues during your time as an ambassador, did the governments or ministries of foreign affairs in Denmark, Sweden, and other Nordic countries call you in for to get to where you were asked to elaborate and have a dialogue on some contentious issues? What specifically did they ask you to elaborate on?
Well, I wouldn't go into the specifics because normally the specifics are for the specific people. But I think that we discussed basically all the issues that you are raising. Because as you know, in diplomacy, your government is also influenced by what is discussed by your papers. In your papers, there's a lot of information that is being filtered to the population, and some of it doesn't carry the real truth. For example, a Swedish guy was killed in Dar es Salaam, and it was considered by that paper as an issue of mass killing, human rights issue, and things like that. But this paper, which is situated in a democratic country, did not even take the trouble to call the ambassador of Tanzania. And they went to publish everything in the press as if what happened had already been confirmed. So I think these are issues sometimes that we have to understand each other. And eventually I called the government and say, look, you are accusing Tanzania of not being democratic. Is this the kind of democracy that we are talking about? And if that is the kind of democracy that you are talking about, then there is a serious problem, because this paper should have actually called either me or the Swedish ambassador in Dar es Salaam. None had been called. But the Swedish ambassador in Dar es Salaam was actually aware of the death of that guy. And it was a human relation issue. So I don't want to go into the details. It was a human relation issue. It had nothing to do. This is a guy who was in the streets, just as if I was to walk in the streets clandestinely without the Swedish government knowing, and then I get affected in the streets. Would that be a diplomatic issue? So I think there are issues that are being blown out of proportion, and the rest of the public doesn't know. I got called to a bishops' conference, I think in Västerås, the Swedish Lutheran Bishops' Conference in Västerås. And you know that I'm not a Lutheran, I'm a Catholic, but they knew that I had been working, even before I became a diplomat, I was working with the churches, both the Lutheran and the Catholic. So they called me, they really pinned me down. And there were 14 bishops. And before summoning me, these bishops, 14 of them, had all been to Tanzania, visiting the Lutheran dioceses. So they came with the information that they had. But unfortunately, that information was not cross-checked with the government. I told them, okay, give me some time. Let me work on it. I provided them with the other side of the story. When I got the real information, now let us sit down and discuss. We sat down, we agreed, and we ended up very amicably. So I think diplomacy is always how you approach issues, how you dialogue, how you open up to those issues. And the cultural levels you are in, the cultural level of the Swedish community is different. When I went to Västerås, an elderly priest who had been in Bukoba in Tanzania, I'm sure most of you will know where Bukoba is. This old priest, I think, Lutheran priest and his wife, I think they're in the 90s, if not in the late 80s. The lady had actually published a book in Kihaya. So she knows Tanzania more than myself, you see. And she had issues, but it all depended on her sources of information. So something that sometimes we forget is, what is your source of information on an issue? How reliable is your source of information? And on one occasion, I went to the minister. I challenged the minister, tell me, Mr. Minister, what is your source of information? And I think he went out of his way and said a political party and a civil society. And then I said, which civil society? The one you are funding. If you are funding a civil society, you are paying their salaries, what would you have expected? What would they have told you? And incidentally, the information is public. I have a full report. They are reporting to the Swedish government through SIDA about the money they receive. So what would you expect? How would they respond on those issues? So the fairness, sometimes I think we have to take the principles of fairness, where we have to take ourselves out of the situation and critically analyze the situation objectively without our own personal interests. And I can't expect that a civil society that is receiving money from a foreign country can judge the situation in Tanzania objectively. And that report is very public. It is, you can just Google and sit and find out the NGOs that are working with Swedish, the SIDA money in Tanzania. Now, if this is the source of your information, then I think, and I'm very open today because I know that you are going to write it in your habari. So I want really to put things clear so that even if you are to write it on the habari, then at least objectively get it written.
Dr. Slaa, when I asked you about specific contentious issues that you had been called to elaborate, I didn't expect you to open up and talk about secret talks. But I just was curious about what issues. You mentioned one, is the Swedish man that was killed in Dar es Salaam somehow. I vaguely recall that this happened.
Yes, okay. I am sorry if that was the line that you had. For me, it was general. I just gave that one example, but the issues are issues of human rights, the schoolgirls, the pregnancy of the schoolgirls. Those are the common issues, the LGBT issues, and issues like that.
Okay. Have you at any time been asked to elaborate on the Tanzanian position regarding COVID-19?
I think the COVID-19 is also one of those issues that have been misinterpreted. And if we objectively go back to the speeches of Magufuli, the one sentence that is not recorded anymore, or that is not being brought into the public now, is his statement that we are not against vaccination, but we can't bring vaccines into the country before we make our own independent verification. And when Magufuli died, that is exactly what Mama Samia did. She followed in the lines of Magufuli. She set up a commission that studied the different vaccines that had already been developed. I think the Pfizer, the BioNTech, Pfizer, and the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, I think had already been started at that time in April. So they set up a committee of experts of Tanzanians. They spent their time, I don't remember exactly now how much time they took, but literally, of course, they went into the detail, the scientific data that was available at that time. I don't think they did their own laboratory tests. That I can't say. I don't also know. And the actual report is several volumes. So I really have not gone through those volumes. But that is exactly what has happened. Now some people just take it out of proportion and say she has changed. Yes, she has changed in the sense now that she is actively promoting vaccination to the Tanzanian population. But it is not contradictory with the previous policy. I think everything is very, very consistent in the Tanzanian politics, except for those people who are not following things in sequence. That is as far as I can say. So right now we have accepted. The issue now is becoming issue of availability. Are there enough vaccines? is the COVAX facility available to the third world countries. What we are hearing all the time is that the developed countries, and I'm sorry, I think when I'm saying developed countries, Sweden and the Nordic countries are part of the developed countries, but I don't think they are part of that community that has amassed everything to themselves. I have heard also Sweden complaining that the richer part have taken everything for themselves. I'm not sure if the EU and the Nordic countries have enough vaccines for themselves either. But at least we don't have, and I think you know that some of the developed countries have now already vaccinated close to 70% of their people or even more. Whereas in Africa, we are less than 3-4%. And it's mostly also because of the lack of vaccines. But there is also a lot of propaganda. There are people who are against, not only in Tanzania or in Africa, even in Europe. So you can understand that we are climbing a lot of hurdles, sometimes that are not of our own making.
Kaloke, before you continue, I hear some noise. Someone.
Yes, there is a work that is going on in my. It is an urgent renovation work that is going on. Let me move, and I think I can shut off at least the acute part of the noise. Are we okay now?
Yeah.
At least partly we are okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we continue, I would like to ask Sten, were your questions? You still have some question, or we have to continue with the karaoke?
I always have questions, but I think, yes, I mean, one question which is pretty natural in these circumstances is, what are your plans for the future?
Oh, that is a very interesting question, Mr. Tain. I am living here on the 1st of October, but I am actually going into full retirement now. Something that is not realized normally is my age.
But I don't think I believe you. I think there will be some projects for you.
No, if you know something about my history, when I left politics in 2015, I think I have always been consistent in what I have been saying. At that time, I said I am going to be free from party politics, and therefore I will not be engaged, and I have never been engaged since then. I was brought into government service, which is different line completely. And now, because I'm above the age of civil service in Tanzania, according to our law, so I think I'm going to full retirement now.
Okay, we'll see. But
do you suspect I'm going into something else?
Well, Kaloke and I, we know something about your plans, which you told us about before. You were planning to write your memoirs.
Oh yes, that is absolutely, yeah. That is why when I said I'm going into retirement, writing forms a big part of a retired person, isn't it? Depending on the background. So I really am going. Actually, I have already started a sketch of my next book. I already published a book in 2018, which is partly an autobiography, but it's partly also on the political situation in Tanzania until 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will continue writing. I have been writing books even before my first book came out, my first two books actually came out in 1973. So writing is part of me, and I think I will continue writing books.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is one thing that I can never avoid.
But yes, okay. When do you expect to publish your next book?
Well, it all depends, because in Tanzania there are so many things. First of all, we don't have. It depends on the subject matter I'm going to pick up. If I pick up a subject that could be politically oriented, it might be difficult to find a publisher.
Yes.
For several reasons.
Yes.
Because I have difficulty to find a publisher for the one of the 2018. If I publish on economic situation of my country or the general situation of my country, that will not be very difficult, but it might be difficult to find a financier. A publisher might not be difficult, but to find a financier. So the timing will really depend on a number of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you know about your successor as an ambassador?
My successor is actually coming very soon, immediately, as soon as I get back home. I am in touch with her, and we already have an appointment when I get back home. It's part of the diplomatic tradition that an ambassador leaves and then the successor also departs. So, and that is part of our unofficial handing over as well. That she has to get some handing over briefs from me before she leaves. Of course, normally we write the normal paper handing over notes, but she will be coming very soon. I know her because she has been working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She has been my chief of protocol. I have worked with her when I'm an ambassador here. She was already my she actually welcomed me in the office as chief of protocol when I was being called into Dar es Salaam for the swearing in. So I know her in that capacity, yes.
Is it always a tradition for a new president to exchange all ambassadors?
No, it is not. It's not a tradition. It is not a. Well, it happens in many places and in number of cases as well, but it doesn't have to happen because the diplomatic appointments, as you know, there are two types of diplomatic appointments. The career diplomats, these are people like my sister Tunsume, who has grown up in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the very beginning. I think even her first appointment, she started in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm not quite sure, but I guess that is what she did. And then this lady, now she's in her maybe early 30s or 40s. I'm not quite sure. I didn't even inquire. But by around 40, maybe she will become an ambassador herself. That is how the career diplomats are made. They are actually trained through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But the second category of diplomats is like me. I didn't come through or from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I fall in the category that is internationally known as political appointees. Now, in the last 15, 20 years, I think the ratio is varied, but I think now it's in the ratio of 60 to 40. 60 would be those who are coming from other than the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and therefore political appointees, because the needs of times have changed. Now there is more need for looking for people who are in the area of business, who are in the area of tourism, in the area of public relations, unlike the traditional direct diplomacy in line with the Vienna Convention. So there are people like me who don't fall in that category. So therefore, for me, since I'm not a civil servant, I am appointed on a contractual basis. So when my contract expires, I walk out unless it is it's extended. But then it all depends on the age. Now, for my age, I don't think I would have accepted an extension either, because at the moment, I would say I'm the oldest person, I think, in the Tanzanian civil service, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Dr. Slaa, I really look forward to your memoirs, and I hope you will find a publisher that will also finance a book that contains political issues or developments in Tanzania. I recall especially one issue that when you and I met for the first time, you were the chairman of the Local Authority Accounts Committee, and I was working in the National Audit Office with the then Controller of the General, Mr. Uttu, and we were fighting corruption. And you had just published, you had mentioned your list of shame. Now, I look forward to your memoirs if you write about developments from that time till today. I don't know if you could say something in general during your time as an ambassador, since you started here, when it comes to corruption, fraud, etc. in Tanzania. How do you view developments generally? I don't expect you to name any list of shames or specifics, but your general comments on this topic.
My brother, it looks like you read my mind. That is one of my favorite topics. And you know, even when I was going around the various conferences in Sweden, unfortunately, we never had the opportunity to meet in any of those business conferences, I think. No. One of the issues that came up always in my conferences was the issue of corruption. And I'm happy to note, and Tunsume may take note of that as well for the new ambassador. One thing that I recorded from the Swedish and basically the entire Nordic business community here was that the corruption practices that were so rampant in the country have decreased very significantly since 2015. And in 2020, when I went to Dar es Salaam with the 30 companies, as I say, I had the opportunity of meeting the Nordic business community, 50 Nordic business companies working in Dar es Salaam. 3/4 of them also recorded, stated that the atmosphere, the business atmosphere has changed positively. There is no longer under the table business, in other words, black market or the kickbacks and things like that. So I think one of my subjects will be to look into the issue of the list of shame in the light of the changes that have taken place in the last 6-7 years. So that is absolutely of interest to me, but it's also interesting to me that the Swedish business people, because your people are known not to be compromising when it comes to the issues of the under the table dealings. You would rather kill a Swedish businessman rather than give his 1,000 kroners. You would rather, and a very old lady, a medical doctor, a specialist, I think, who was working with Muhimbili, once told me a story about how she handled an officer at the port of Dar es Salaam who had demanded some money from her to clear some of the equipment that she was taking to Muhimbili. And this lady literally, when she got very angry with this man, after several days of attempts to clear that equipment, and she didn't have much time, so she actually went into the neck of this man. So until she goes to that level of really grabbing the neck of someone to the extent of literally fighting, then you know that she was very much aggrieved. So that is characteristic of Swedish, but basically of all the Nordic people.
By the way, this is a bit personal now, but when you're coming back, will you stay in Tanzania in November, for example, because of your great interest of issues of corruption? You know, Mr. Utto, he is the chairman of Wajibu, the Institute of Public Accountability, and he has called to a conference on the 18th and the 19th of November in Arusha on these issues, and the business community will be involved. So just as a hint, you might like to participate or ask Utto to invite you if you're in Tanzania at the time.
I will be in Tanzania at least for the coming 6 months. I don't intend to move out of Tanzania. You might remember that I told you my family is still in Canada, so I might be flying between Tanzania and Canada to visit my family, but I don't think that will happen in the coming 6 months. So I will basically be in Dar es Salaam. I might be traveling to Karatu, my home place as well, but basically I'll be, even if I am in Karatu, then I will be closer even to Arusha.
Okay, good. I will travel to Tanzania in mid-October, and Utto has invited me to participate in this conference, and I intend to try to attend. So
you are most welcome. I will be very happy. I'll be very happy to see you. And if I get invitation from Mr. Utto, I will certainly attend because my friend will be also there.
I'll give him a hint.
Thank you very much for that. Now this is another danger, and I think that is what Stein had been alluding to. Once you start pulling me into these things, eventually I will not be on retirement at all. So now I can see what Stein was referring to, but please spare me from that, from those kind of activities. This is the only one that I will accept because of you as my friend and Utto as my friend also.
Okay, because we want to give time to most of the people who have been attending today, so I would like to ask her if you have some questions to Dr. Slaa, please. Let's ask her. Öppna micken. Öppna micken.
Put on the microphone, Lars.
Now then, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome to ask some question to Dr. Slaa, please.
Yeah, Sten has asked many of the questions I was thinking about, but what about the Swahili Day?
The Swahili Day events were being held all the time since I came. Since 2018, we have had Swahili Day events until 2019. I think for the first time we suspended all the activities because of the restrictions that were imposed by the government as a result of the COVID-19. And we just received a brief from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, that the restrictions have been eased, but they have been extended also to, I think, October 31st. So even this year, I'm not sure whether we are really going to have the Swahili Day. It's really the COVID-19 that has completely disoriented all the activities. We used to celebrate Swahili Day, as you remember. We used to celebrate Nyerere Day. In some of the Nordic countries, we were also celebrating Uhuru Day, the 9th of December. But since 2020, we have not celebrated any of those occasions. And for your information, 2021 is the 60th anniversary of the independence of Tanganyika. So technically, we should be celebrating it, but I think because of the COVID-19, nobody also knows what will happen.
Okay, we hope it will be possible to have a Swahili Day in 22.
we are all looking at 2022, and even the major events that we normally hold together with the governments of the Nordic countries, we have pushed them to 2022.
Okay, thank you. What is the name of your successor?
My successor's name is Ambassador Grace Olotu.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that is the name she actually officially uses. Tunsume, maybe you can help me.
She actually uses
Thank
Grace Martin.
She uses Grace Martin.
Grace Martin, yes.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I have received letters that sometimes say Grace Martin, Grace Olotu. So that is why I said I wanted help from my colleague, but they have been working together at the ministry, so they know each other very well as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So are you ready, Lars? Have you finished your questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Eva,
I didn't hear a question from Eva.
yeah.
Eva, you have been so quiet today. What happened?
I'm listening, and I have a husband that speaks too much.
I didn't.
No, but I have a question, a more personal question.
Yes,
what
Eva.
good memories and experiences will you bring back to Tanzania from Sweden?
Oh my God! It would have been a great scene if we had finished this meeting without that question. The love that I found in the Swedish people, and particularly the elderly Swedish people like you. This is the community of the Swedish people that you meet in the street. They will stop, they will look at you, they will ask you, are you from East Africa or are you from South Africa, depending on where they have been to. But they will certainly greet you and ask something very personal. So it really means that there is that personal relationship. But most of them have still fond memories of their time in Africa. Even if he has not been to Tanzania, he will say, yes, I was in Central Africa. They will not even have an idea whether you know where Central Africa is. But they will have that interest. They will just want to exchange with you. Unfortunately, this is almost disappearing with the young people now. So the most interesting story that I will go back, that most elderly people, and particularly those who have been in Africa or somewhere else, they are very nice people, and they still have fond memories of our country. So thank you very much, the Swedish community that has been outside. And I think the culture that you picked up during your time when you are working either with the government or with the companies or whatever you are doing, or even as missionaries, I think those ties will continue. Please do pass them on to the younger generation.
Okay.
So it's very good Eva came up with that question. Thank you very much, Eva, for that question.
Yeah.
Thank you for the answer.
I didn't hear anything from Linus either.
Yeah, I'm coming there. So I was thinking, Harriet, do you have any question to Dr. Slaa?
On your microphone.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Slaa. It's been extremely interesting to listen to your experiences and your very wise words. And I think that we all who love Tanzania and hope to visit Tanzania many times, we feel very hopeful also that everything is going in the right way, and that I'm very sorry about the pandemic, and we are lobbying and trying to get, to help governments to fund more for the vaccines. We find that for the vaccination. So thank you, Dr. Slaa, so much. Thank you.
That is the only hope, because at the end of the day, now we know clearly, according to statistics, being vaccinated may not actually protect you 100%. But the data that is available now, both in the US and in the UK, I think clearly indicate that the number of those hospitalized is more from the group that has not been vaccinated rather than from the vaccinated group. So I think now we know more or less.
Yes, I quite agree. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is the only hope.
Linus, do you have some questions?
Not really. I think there has been a lot of good questions and good answers, and it was really interesting to listen. And I just have a quick comment about something that I know our friend Thomas Kisanga is working on and has been able, together with some other Tanzanians, to initiate something called BAT, the Blockchain Association of Tanzania, that is right now being registered and already actually had some, what I understand, first training seminars for government offices about the blockchain technology and how it can be used and utilized in Tanzania. And I also want to point out that I think this is a really good initiative, and it's really interesting to see how Tanzania can hopefully be ahead of Sweden when it comes to this making regulation and a way to control and manage in a good way how digital currencies and blockchain can be used for the better of Tanzania. So I'm looking forward to that, to see what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you very much. Tunsuma, would you know something about that?
I don't have much details on this, but I heard something like the Bank of Tanzania putting in measures to accept the digital currencies, something like that. I don't have details, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. I don't have much details myself either, but I know that the president herself has actually made it clear to prepare Tanzanians for the cryptocurrency. So that automatically shows that there is a big push and drive from the top leadership, and there is no way that we can actually keep ourselves out of this digital activities, because everything is being driven almost without our control. I know that we had in one of the, I think in one of the meetings that we had also, Rehema, we had a contact with someone in Dar es Salaam who was operating a Bitcoin. Was it in your meeting or in another meeting?
Yeah, it was at the big meeting, I think.
Yes, it was in a big meeting. So this was already 2018. So I don't know how much it has developed since then. But one thing I can assure you is that Tanzania, with a number of close to 40 million mobile phones now in the hands of the population, out of a population of 60. So you can see how much Tanzania is digitalizing fast. And once you are digitalized, then automatically things will move fast. And at the end of the day, for people like me who are pushing for a corruption-free society, digitalization is the only way. I've been going to my church, Joenia here in Stockholm, and they were talking now of even the church contribution, the little donations that we pay on Sundays is going to be on Swish. So if Sweden is moving to that extent, even in church, and some people were telling me that, but my faith, because even when I stand up from my chair, my seat, to go and present my little donation in front of the altar, that is an act of prayer. Now, if you digitalize and you make a Swish, how is that then part of the donation to God? So there are a lot of these issues and ideas coming up, but the world is moving very fast, and the way the world is moving, I don't think we can avoid digitalization at all. So thank you very much for that wonderful issue. I think if everybody is happy, we don't have to force people to come up with questions. I only hope that you will send me your next issue of Habari. I may not be able to read it, but I attended 19 sessions of Swedish, so I may be able to pick maybe 10 words out of a whole page.
Okay.
And I will be happy to read what you have written then. And I will encourage my daughter Tunsume to really to attend also the courses, and then she can also send me a translated version of your next Habari. So I wish you all the best. I welcome you to Tanzania in your individual capacities. As I mentioned, I come from the Karatu side, which is very close to Ngorongoro, Crater, to Serengeti. So anytime you visit Tanzania, and I know that you would like to visit Ngorongoro and or even Mount Kilimanjaro, for some of those who are still interested with Kilimanjaro, and Karatu is only 150 kilometers away. So you are most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought that we should give some few minutes to be Tunsumu if she would like to say anything. Karibu.
Karibu Tunsume, don't be afraid. Even if I'm here, don't worry. Take the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I attended this meeting. At least I got an idea of Svetan, because when the ambassador told me about you, I never heard of this association. So it's good I attended, and I look forward to future cooperation with all of you. And when the new ambassador comes, I will brief of this association, and hopefully we can set a meeting with her when she's here. Thank you.
Yeah.
You have said the right thing, Tunsume, and maybe now I can. I had something in my mind, but I wasn't very sure. Rehema.
Yes.
I didn't explain anything to Tunsume about the secondary schools that you either you as Svetan or a smaller group within Svetan. I'm not quite sure. I know with Mama Tibaijuka, you are finding a number of secondary schools. Is it Svetan directly, or is it another organization?
I think it was this school Mama Babro started. I don't
exactly
think, yeah. And before, I don't know, can one of you, Sten or Eva, answer this school? Your microphone, Eva.
Mama Barbro school is supported by a separate association.
Yeah.
It's not Svetan.
No.
I can it is Joha Trust Fund, and the chairman is Gun-Britt Andersson. I'm a member of that association.
You are a member of that association?
Outside Dar es Salaam.
Yes, just outside Dar es Salaam, but towards Bagamoyo.
No, it's towards Morogoro or Kibaha.
Is it Barbara Johnson?
I didn't have the.
Yeah.
Barbara Johnson?
Yes.
In her spirit, to her memory. Anna Tibaijuka is a leading person on the side, and Gun-Britt Andersson here in Stockholm.
Okay. So I think I confused the connection, because the first time in the meeting that I attended, I think there was something mentioned about Mama Tibaijuka coming over for that fundraising. Now I thought there was a connection between Babro secondary schools as well as and Svetan. So it's a different organization.
Yeah, Sveta is known for the Tumaini project. I think you have heard of it in Bukoba.
I know of the Tumaini project, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you will see about the Tumaini project, Tunsume.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the last question, or you're already okay with you?
Of course, there are many questions about the base and so on, but I think your time is up.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much for Dr. Slaa and Svetan Zoom to be able to attend this meeting. And we thank you, Dr. Slaa, very much. And we wish you all the best. And it's very good that we have this time to say goodbye to you. And I hope you are going to remember us. And anytime you come back to Sweden, you are welcome. And we hope those who are traveling to Karatu are able to visit you in Karatu and just show them around. And if there is no other question, I declare that the meeting is over, unless Dr. Slaa, you have the last word, or
Maybe just one for the benefit of Tunsume. Tunsume Mama Rehema, she's chair of Vetan now. I don't know, they have elections every 2 years or something like that, or 3 years. I'm not sure. But Mama Rehema is also chair of TDC Global Women Committee. I don't know what you call yourselves. Maybe you can explain her so that as she's trying to find that direction, she knows exactly who is who.
I'm the chairman of the TDC Global, all the women all over the diaspora women for now. So I will get in touch with you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
once
you.
again to each and every one of you. I wish you God's blessings. And I only hope that we'll meet somewhere. If not in Tanzania, we'll meet somewhere in tourism, in a conference or something like that. May God bless you all.
And the same to
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Sam,
you
the
very
same.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Haya, Tunsume, mimi na wewe ofisi yetu tubaki kidogo.
Sawa balozi.